Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. Thanks for joining us. I'm Shuhaida Arifin and you're watching Updates at Noon. Our headline for today, 30 Malaysians rescued from Sudan safely reach home. Israeli forces shot dead Palestinian teen. The operation to bring back 30 Malaysians from Sudan under Ops Sudan in the conflict-ravaged country has concluded with everyone arriving home safely without any injuries. Foreign Minister Datuk Seri Dr. Zamri Abdul Kadir said, even though Ops Sudan has been completed, Wisma Putra is still closely following developments in Sudan. Met after welcoming the arrival of the 30 Malaysians at Kuala Lumpur International Airport, he said the success of bringing home all the registered Malaysians was the result of the joint efforts of all parties, including the concern expressed by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong Al-Sultan Abdullah Riayatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah and Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim.
Itu saya juga ingin mengucapkan terima kasih kepada pihak kerajaan Arab Saudi, pihak kerajaan UAE, khususnya Presiden UAE yang memberi perhatian yang sangat khusus akan keadaan rakyat Malaysia kita.
He said the Malaysian embassy in Sudan is temporarily closed and all related matters will be handled by the Malaysian embassy in Cairo. Malaysians who want to visit Sudan are advised to postpone their trip until the situation improves. Malaysia is applying for an extra 10,000 Hajj quota from the Saudi Arabian government for this year's Hajj season. Tabung Haji TH Board Chairman Tan Sri Azman Mokhtar said the decision on the application is expected to be known by 21st May before the first flight ferrying Malaysian Hajj pilgrims departed to Mecca to perform the fifth pillar of Islam. On 25th March, Minister in the Prime Minister's Department Religious Affairs, Datuk Muhammad Naim Mokhtar, was reported as saying that 31,600 Malaysians have been offered to perform the Hajj this year and the government was still awaiting Saudi Arabia's approval for an additional 350 pilgrims. He said one of the reasons presented to the Saudi Arabian government is that Malaysia's population has grown to 31.95 million. Earlier, Tan Sri Azman announced a profit distribution of 3.1% after zakat for TH financial year 2022. The distribution of profit involved a sum of 2.65 billion ringgit and would benefit more than 8.7 million TH depositors. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim has dismissed allegations by certain quarters that his unity government was victimising states ruled by the opposition. Instead, the federal government had increased allocations for opposition-controlled states, including Kedah, which is led by Perikatan Nasional PN. In addressing the Madani Kedah 2023 gathering last night, the Prime Minister stressed that he was not out to make enemies of anyone and instead wanted to rebuild the country together with people who defend integrity.
Negeri Kedah, Perlis, Sabah, Sarawak, Malaysia ini punya potensi yang sangat baik. Rakyat Melayu majoriti, orang Islam bersama yang lain mampu bawa robah peta politik, angkat martabat ekonomi, bela nasib rakyat. Kalau pimpinannya bertanggungjawab, negara ini mampu bawa perubahan. Siapa yang tentukan? Rakyat tentukan.
He called on the people to support the unity government because of its policy of upholding the dignity of the people and the country. The event was attended by more than 3,000 visitors. The Madani gathering was also attended by Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Dr. Ahmad Zahid Hamidi, Home Minister Datuk Seri Saifuddin Nasution Ismail, Foreign Minister Datuk Seri Dr. Zamri Abdul Kadir, Communications and Digital Minister Fahmi Fazil, and Domestic Trade and Cost of Living Minister Datuk Seri Salahuddin Ayub. It is important for the government to be attentive in order to avoid making political blunders in pursuing reforms of the human rights agenda. In fact, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim said the government has to look thoroughly into some measures as well as legislative matters before pursuing those reforms, which may take some time. Thus, Prime Minister urged the human rights group Suara Rakyat Malaysia Suaram to be more objective in its criticism of the government over the allegedly slow pace of reforms in this country.
We are dealing with the rakyat. We have seen the blunder about ISAT. What do we need to do? We are committed to the issue of human rights. And we have done, measures. And in the institutional reform, we have taken measures. And every single legislation we look at. But you have to give time.
Suaram on Thursday criticised the government over the slow pace of reforms in this country. In our foreign front, at least 23 killed in Russian airstrike. Israeli troops shot dead a Palestinian teenager near the West Bank town of Bethlehem Friday in what the Zionists said was a response to stone throwing. Palestinian Health Ministry announced Mustafa Amir Sabah, 16, was killed by the occupation bullets in the town of Tekka without detailing the circumstances of the fatal shooting. An AFP photographer saw relatives at a Bethlehem hospital gathering around Sabah's body, which was wrapped in a Palestinian flag. The teenager's death comes a day after Israeli soldiers shot dead a Palestinian the army accused of attempting to carry out a car ramming attack in the northern West Bank. Friday's shooting brings to 100 the number of Palestinians killed in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict so far this year. Russia hurled missiles at cities in Ukraine yesterday, killing at least 23 civilians in its first large-scale airstrikes in nearly 2 months. In the central Ukrainian town of Uman, firefighters battled a blaze at a residential apartment building struck on an upper floor by a Russian missile. Officials said at least 21 civilians were killed there, including several children. Rescue workers clambered through a huge pile of smoldering rubble, carrying a body away on a stretcher. The wave of Russian missile attacks overnight was the first since early March. Russia had launched such attacks almost weekly for most of the winter, but they tapered off as spring arrived, with Western countries saying Moscow was running out of missiles. On Friday evening, new air alerts sounded across much of eastern and southern Ukraine and some central regions, with officials appealing to residents not to ignore the warnings. Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian said Saudi Arabia and Iran will open embassies in each other's capitals within days as the relationship between the two regional rivals warms up after years of hostility. Speaking at a news conference in the Lebanese capital Beirut, Amir Abdullahian did not give specific dates for the reopening of the embassies. The Iranian and Saudi embassies in the respective countries have been closed since 2016. The relationship started deteriorating in 2015 following the intervention of Saudi Arabia in the UAE in the Yemen war after the Iran-aligned Houthi movement toppled the Saudi-backed government and seized control of the capital Sana'a. Saudi Arabia accused Iran of providing weapons to the Houthis, who attacked Saudi cities with armed drones and ballistic missiles. In 2019, Riyadh accused Tehran of being responsible for an attack targeting Aramco oil facilities. The tension between the two regional rivals has fueled conflicts across the region, including the Syrian civil war. Iran and Saudi Arabia agreed last month to end a diplomatic row and restore diplomatic missions under a deal brokered by China. Preliminary data as of yesterday showed the Eurozone grew only marginally in the first 3 months of 2023 and at a rate lower than market expectations after stagnation at the end of last year. Gross domestic product in the Eurozone expanded by 0.1% in the first quarter, below expectations. Compared to a year earlier, growth was 1.3% against expectations of 1.4%. That compared with zero growth in the previous quarter for the current 20-nation Eurozone and a quarterly decline of 0.1% for the 19 countries that were in the Eurozone at that point. Among the bloc's biggest countries, Germany registered no growth after contraction in the final quarter of 2022. The economies of France, Italy and Spain did expand. But even if the bloc is doing better than feared, growth in 2023 will be among the weakest on record due to a large drop in real incomes and surging interest rates. The European Commission is forecasting that the Eurozone will expand by 0.9% this year and by 1.5% next. The EU executive said the bloc would avoid a recession but was beset with challenges from inflation and monetary tightening to weak external demand and general uncertainty. Costa Rican President Rodrigo Chavez Robles said Costa Rica and China enjoy strong economic ties and Costa Rica welcomes more Chinese investment to expand bilateral win-win cooperation. Chavez said Costa Rica made the right decision to become the first country in Central America to establish diplomatic ties with China in the new century, and the two countries' cooperation has been improving over the years. In 2007, China and Costa Rica established diplomatic relations, launching a new era of friendly ties between the two countries. In May 2013, Chinese President Xi Jinping visited Costa Rica, opening a new chapter in the friendship and cooperation between the two countries. Chinese residents have been enjoying high-quality products from Costa Rica, including coffee, pork, dairy products and pineapples. China is now Costa Rica's second-largest trading partner. In September 2018, the two countries signed a Memorandum of Understanding MOU on Belt and Road Cooperation. Colombia's armed forces seized 10.2 tons of cocaine worth $340 million in various operations in the Caribbean Sea and along the border with Venezuela. The Colombian government on Thursday said initially 5.5 tons of drugs were seized and 9 people were detained during the 3 different operations in collaboration with the US and Panama. The detainees had tried to flee in a high-speed motorboat chase. According to Caribbean Naval Force Commander Vice Admiral Hernando Matos, this is the largest cocaine hydrochloride seizure made in the Caribbean in 2023. In a second bust, Colombian National Police, along with the Army, discovered a cocaine processing lab in the middle of the jungle in Tipu, on the border with Venezuela, where they seized 4.7 tons of cocaine belonging to the elm. The plummeting price of coca in some of Colombia's cultivation hotspots is unlikely to affect major drug trafficking operations, despite forcing farmers out of growing the crop. NASA astronaut Steve Bowen and United Arab Emirates astronaut Sultan Al Neyadi ventured outside the International Space Station ISS for a 6.5-hour spacewalk yesterday to make preparations for the installation of the station's power generation system. The astronauts exited the station's Quest airlock to prepare for future installation of upgraded solar arrays on the starboard side of the station's truss. Bowen and Al-Neyadi were set to retrieve S-band antenna equipment and take it inside the space station for refurbishment. The spacewalk is part of a series to augment the station's power channels with a new International Space Station rolled-out solar array, IROSAS. 4 of the new arrays have been installed so far, and 2 additional arrays will be mounted to the installed platforms during the future spacewalks following the arrival this year on SpaceX's 28th Commercial Resupply Services mission for NASA. Bowen served as extravehicular crew member 1 EV1 and wore a suit with red stripes. Al-Nayadi served as extravehicular crew member 2 EV2 and wore an unmarked suit. US Spacewalk 86 is the 8th spacewalk for Bowen and the first for any UAE astronaut, NASA reported on their website. Al-Nayadi travelled to the International Space Station on March 2nd as part of the NASA's SpaceX Crew 6 mission.
Nak tengok saya baca berita? Bersama saya, Safi Sali dalam Stadium RTM 29 dan 30 April ini. RTM, teman setia.
Youth and Sports Minister Hannah Yeoh will hold a meeting with Shireen Samson Valboy next Tuesday to discuss the needs and welfare of the national athlete. She said Shireen, 25, Ipoh-born, who is currently a student athlete at Winona State University in Minnesota, United States, has shown excellent improved performance.
Saya akan berjumpa dengan Shireen minggu hadapan dan saya akan maklumkan nanti selepas saya berbincang dengan Shireen dulu. Shireen merupakan seorang atlet yang telah menonjolkan prestasi penambahbaikan yang sangat cemerlang. Okey, dan bagi pihak KBS, kita nak pastikan atlet-atlet seperti ini yang telah menunjukkan prestasi penambahbaikan diberikan sokongan dalam bentuk apa masih dalam perbincangan di peringkat KBS dulu.
It was reported that Shireen is facing problems to finance her training and stay in Florida after the sponsorship from the Better Malaysia Foundation BMF is expected to be only enough until December for her effort to grab a slot to the 2024 Olympic Games. Shireen has previously broken the 400-meter indoor national record 4 times, the last one being when she won the gold medal at the National Collegiate Athletic Association NCAA Division II Indoor Track and Field Championships in Virginia Beach, Virginia last May. Updates on the Malaysian Super League. Kelantan FC's unlucky streak continues as they suffered a close defeat to Perak FC at Stadium Sultan Muhammad IV in Kota Baru last night. In the action, which they played in front of some 5,000 of home supporters, Kelantan FC was fierce right out of the gates, piling on pressure onto Perak FC's defence lines. The Red Warriors opened up the scoreboard with their first goal through Nuha Marong in the 14th minute. However, Perak found an equaliser thanks to an own goal by Kelantan defender Muhammad Yusri Yuhasmadi in the 34th minute. The Bosgaru squad then went on to obtain a hefty lead by scoring 2 goals, each contributed by Luciano Guacohia and Muhammad Hafizal Muhammad in the 44th and 67th minute respectively. Kelantan huffed and puffed to equalise but could only manage to score 1 goal extremely late towards the end of the match through Nur Shamil Abdul Ghani in the 93rd. On to international football. Bundesliga leaders Borussia Dortmund's title chances suffered a serious blow last night after they stumbled to a 1-1 draw at struggling VfL Bochum in the Mini Ruhr derby with 4 games left to play. Dortmund are on 61 points, 2 points clear of second place Bayern Munich, who will take over the lead if they beat bottom club Hertha Berlin tomorrow. As unmarked Karim Real Madrid coach Carlo Ancelotti confirms Luka Modric is out pending evaluation after picking up an injury against Girona, casting doubt on whether he will be fit to face Manchester City in their Champions League semi-final first leg match. The club said Luka Modric has an injury to the back of his left thigh and gave no further details in the statement.
Sí, la verdad es que Luka ha tenido una pequeña lesión en el partido contra Girona, está de baja, es pendiente de evolución, no sé si puede llegar a la final de Copa, tenemos que verlo y evaluarlo en los próximos días. Claramente Estamos dolidos por esto, pero en el fútbol esto puede pasar. Ojalá pueda recuperar pronto y tenerlo en los partidos importantes que se quedan de la temporada.
Spanish media reported the 37-year-old Croatian star will be out for about 10 days. The Spanish Cup final is on 6 May and the first leg of the Champions League semi-final against the English champions is in Madrid on 9th May. Modric was replaced by French international midfielder Aurélien Tchouameni in the 63rd minute as Real lost 4-2 to Girona in La Liga on Tuesday. Real face Almeria later today with the visit Real Sociedad on Tuesday before playing Osasuna in the Spanish Cup final in Seville. Now moving on to tennis, top seed Carlos Alcaraz made it through to the third round of the Madrid Open yesterday, but not without a mighty scare from Emil Ruusuvuori. Roared on by a passionate crowd in the Spanish capital, Alcaraz raised his level to clinch a 2-6, 6-4, 6-2 win over the world number 41. The Spaniard defeated Rafael Nadal, Novak Djokovic and Alexander Zverev en route to the title in Madrid last year, but didn't have things all his own way against the clean-hitting Finn in his opening match at this year's event. After losing the first set, the 19-year-old dug deep in the second set, saving all 5 break points he faced before leveling the match. He reduced errors, used the drop shot effectively, and demonstrated incredible agility to produce moments of magic and triumph after 2 hours and 16 minutes. With his 24th tour-level win of the season, Alcaraz improved to 1-1 in his ATP head-to-head series against Ruusuvuori, avenging his defeat to the 24-year-old in Miami in 2021. Defending champion Alcaraz will now play Grigor Dimitrov in the next round, following the Bulgarians 7-6, 7-6 against Gregor Barev. Meanwhile, third seed Casper Ruud was knocked out of the Madrid Open in the second round after suffering a 6-3, 6-4 loss to Italian qualified Matteo Arnaldi. Arnaldi, the world number 96, hit 35 winners on his way to his first win against a top 10 opponent, while for Norwegian Ruud, it was his 9th defeat of the season. The Italian qualifier saved 1 match point to earn his first ATP Masters 1000 win against Benoit Paire in the first round and backed that up by producing a free-hitting performance against Ruud. He struck 35 winners and hit with great depth to consistently push Ruud back and inflict a 9th defeat of the season on the Norwegian. Arnaldi reached a career high number 102 earlier this month after he won his second ATP Challenger Tour title of the year in Spain. The 22-year-old will face Spaniard Jean Muna in the second round, who advanced after Talon Grigspor was forced to retrieve after Muna had clinched the first set 7-6. Meanwhile, Alexander Zverev was made to work by Roberto Carballes Baena in a marathon match in his Madrid Open opener yesterday. The first set alone was an hour and 26 minutes long after the Spaniard got the best of Zverev, winning the tie-break 8-6. Carballes Baena held his own in the second set, even getting the first break of the match to go up 4-3. From there, the German turned it around, finally winning the second 7-5 in another lengthy set that lasted an hour and 13 minutes. The number 13 seed, however, sprinted through the third set, winning 6 straight games, 8 when counting the last 2 of the second set to wrap up the match 6-7, 7-5, 6-love in 3 hours and 21 minutes. Earlier number 6 seed Holger Rune of Denmark put away Kazakhstan's Alexander Bublik 6-1, 4-6, 7-6. Number 12 seed Hubert Hurkacz of Poland also advanced to the third round with a 6-7, 6-4, 7-5 win over Richard Gasquet of France.
6-7, 7-5, 6-love.
Ferrari's Charles Leclerc took a pole position in Baku for the third year in a row at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix yesterday with a scorching lap that ended Red Bull's run of qualifying domination. The pole in a session twice red flag early on due to crashes was Ferrari's first of the Formula One season after Red Bull had qualified fastest in Bahrain, Saudi Arabia and Australia. Red Bull Championship leader Max Verstappen will line up alongside on the front row with his teammate Sergio Perez third. There was nothing to separate him and Verstappen after the initial flying laps, with both clocking 1 minute 40.445 seconds, but the Red Bull driver on a provisional pole due to setting his time first. Leclerc made sure he got his second lap in first, lowering the benchmark to 1 minute 40.203, with Verstappen unable to beat it and ending up 0.188 seconds slower. 7 times world champion Lewis Hamilton put his Mercedes fifth on the grid, with Aston Martin's Fernando Alonso alongside. Lando Norris will line up 7th in an upgraded McLaren, with AlphaTauri's Yuki Tsunoda 8th and Lance Stroll's Aston Martin and Oscar Piastri McLaren on the row behind.
Kemboja 2023. Skuad bawah 23 tahun negara kini menggalas cabaran bagi memburu ibu segala pingat. Rabu 3 Mei, saksikan perlawanan bola sepak Malaysia bertemu Laos 8 malam di saluran OK dan saluran sukan RTM. Saksikan juga secara penstrima langsung di RTM Klik. Eksklusif hanya di RTM.
Alright, so that concludes today's edition of Updates at Noon. In our top story, 30 Malaysians rescued from Sudan safely reach home. Do tune in to Malaysia Tonight, coming up later this evening on saluran Berita RTM. We leave you with the visuals of the Wosonobo sky in Java, Indonesia, filled with colourful hot air balloons. The Ansor Kertek Balloon Culture Festival is back in full swing after a 2-year COVID hiatus. Till then, I'm Shuhaida. Thank you for watching. Thank you.